As I understand it, there's a trend that's been going on for the last little while where people are welcoming a weird demonic figure into their house so that it can sit on the shelf and they can tell their children that it is spying on them to report their activities to the big guy to know whether or not they need to be rewarded or punished. Satan? I'm obviously talking about the elf on the shelf. Why it is a troubling myth to give children or to foster in our society. This isn't a satanic panic, don't worry. Let's talk about the elf on the shelf today as we walk together down creation's path. Hello everyone, my name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian. I am Christopagan and sous chef to the Dagda.
Yeah, I really want to talk about the elf on the shelf because I think it takes the worst parts of Santa lore and does weird things with it. But before we get into any of that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology is on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do original Christopagan and druid content 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on this podcast. And we've got a lot of stuff coming and you don't want to miss a thing. Okay, yeah, it may sound a little bit rushed because I really want to get into this one. Let's be clear for a minute in our definitions, because I know somebody has already started typing in the comments, oh, you're just taking part in a modern satanic panic to ruin the fun of kids. I do not believe that there is a spirit behind the elf on the shelf any more than there's a spirit in anything else, because I am an animist and there's a spirit in all things. I'm not saying this is a satanic thing because of a weird cabal that is trying to blah, 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 blah. You know the spiel. I'm saying it's literally satanic. Literally satanic. Because let's go back to Biblical Hierarchies 101. Satan means accuser. Satan is the recording angel that follows people around throughout their entire life, recording everything that they do wrong to report back to God over whether or not somebody should be rewarded or punished, generally focusing on the punishment part. My favorite Satan, we did an episode about this and the mini Satans a little while back, is Mastamon, who kind of awesome, argues with God that genocide is wrong. Love that about him. Also then spends the rest of the book sitting back, just being like, you see, they did a bad thing, send them a plague. Not a good guy. But that's literally what Satan is.
Then you take Elf on the Shelf, an elf was helper of Santa, builds toys, great things, yay. They sit on the shelf, they spy on the family, recording the good and bad that they do, and then reporting on the bad so they can be punished.
Yeah. I mean, this is literally Satan.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking about like figuratively or anything. This is literally.
This is the energies of Satan.
And I find this weird.
The very first challenge is those that want to go, well, they're reporting on the good and the bad, right? They want to try to focus on the good. I challenge you to sit back and go, how many stories have you heard of the application of Elf on the Shelf where the family went, we recorded the child doing a good thing and rewarded them for that?
And beyond that, the unnamed Satan in the book of Job knows all of Job's good deeds.
Yeah.
And stipulates to all of good deeds and actually says he only does good things because God's nice to him.
Yeah.
If God was mean,
uses it.
Yeah, he actually uses them against Job.
He basically does the same role of that person that goes, you know, the only reason you're giving charity is so you feel better. So therefore your charity is not actual charity. It's for your benefit. That's the same Satan argument.
Yeah.
Because the person, when they make that argument, they're standing in for Satan in your life, in your mythic story, accusing you.
Because what we get wrong about like Jesus and Satan is we have turned Satan into a tempter. And the whole point of that story is by this point in history, the devil is not this. Satan are not only looking for ways to accuse you of doing bad, they are just so convinced that you are bad. They're like, here, just do it. Here's the bad thing. Go ahead. I know you're going to do the bad thing anyway. You know, you wanna. They're that older sibling that knows you wouldn't steal the cookies because you didn't know that there were cookies in the kitchen, but decides to tell you that Mom picked up cookies from the store so that you go in there and steal a cookie to get in trouble. that's kind of the Satan that has evolved by that point. And that's the one that we see in the Gospels. His kind of evolution of mastema, of, hey, you're going to do it anyway. Might as well just get it over with. Why suffer? You have infinite power. Turn the stones into bread. What could go wrong? I know we've talked about the satanic part of this, and there's actually a secondary part that I have a problem with, but I find it hilarious that people that would never put a Baphomet or a pentagram or any overtly satanic image in their home, like the kid would come home with a black metal album and they would be like, oh, sweet, are literally putting a by definition what a Satan is figure in their home. This is how I'm going to teach my kids to be good. There's a lot to unpack there. And by the way, I'm not judging you if you did this with your kids because you didn't make that connection before. I think it's, on a spiritual level, it's creepy. On a real world level, it's dangerous because what you're doing is teaching kids to preemptively comply. Look, you're living in a surveillance state. They're always watching you. So you better do what they want you to do to keep the bad things from happening. It is an oddly totalitarian way to teach a child. I knew my country was cooked the day I found out about Elf on the Shelf. Many years ago, when I first heard about this product, Elf on the Shelf, I was like, we're cooked. I didn't use that word because that phrase wasn't really around then, or at least not in my vocabulary then, but it's over. We've lost the war. People don't understand what liberty or freedom or any of that is anymore.
I understand wanting to be able to go back and have an objective observer of situations and stuff, having those cameras and things recording so you can go back and look at things. I understand the temptation of that. I understand the desire and the place for that. But now to stand in as the Satan for the moment, if your child is only being good because someone is always watching them, they have been robbed of any benefits of being good.
Yeah.
They're being good because they're being observed.
They're actually not being good.
They're not choosing to be good.
If I can quote Jesus, it's not what goes in, it's what comes out that makes a person. It is literally the choices that we make. Preemptive compliance. And this is the problem that I have with most Christian nationalist and imperial church doctrine on morality. If you require a fear of hell to be a good person, you are not a good person. And the sad thing is, you may not agree with me on that sentence, but the people that came up with those ideas would. These are people who believed in things like total depravity, that a newborn child is totally depraved and is already evil.
Whether you believe it or not, you can also observe it time and time again. When the temptation comes along, if whatever is enforcing the compliance is removed, that person gives into the temptation every time because they don't choose to be good. Like, say, for instance, it's stealing, right? They're told you're going to go to hell for stealing or whatever, so they believe that, right? The minute they no longer believe they're going to go to hell for stealing, and they say find a wallet sitting there. So therefore now this is consequence-free. They found this wallet. There's identity in there for who owns it, and there's a bunch of money. Time and time again, I watch that person just take the money. They'll either throw the wallet away or they'll take the money and then sometimes they'll turn the wallet back in because they have enough compassion to feel bad for the person of having to go through getting their identity and stuff and having to replace their card. So they might turn that in and just go, I don't know, the money wasn't in there. But they still stole because they had that enforced compliance. A good person would go, this is not mine, and would try to return it to who it belongs to, even.
And this is not the episode where we're going to go through how to develop a proper ethic. We can do that. We kind of did that a little bit in our Ethics of Hexing episode, which if you haven't listened to is, I think, one of the better episodes that we've done of the podcast. But ethics is something that comes from inside. Ethics is about a series of choices that we make about what is right and what is wrong. The same is true of morality. Morality is about a series of choices that we make about what is the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. Living with integrity is living in accordance with those moral principles. When you espouse a moral principle, doing everything in your power to live by it. That's what integrity is. And those are internal things. And they're things that need to be discussed and explained and understood. Like, why don't you steal? Why don't you hit somebody when you're mad at them? Why should you ever restrain any of your basic instincts? These are questions. And you see they keep popping up in every generation. There's going to be somebody that questions these basic things. Well, when you're angry and you want to hit something, why don't you just hit it? And it's because violence is contagious. And it really is that phrase, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Like, once you start down the dark path, forever will it haunt your destiny. Like, it doesn't solve anything. It creates perpetual cycles of violence that have no remedy until it's just stopped. And that's why. And we can discuss the reasoning and what things like Elf on the Shelf and even the weird, he's making a list, checking it twice, gonna find out who's naughty or nice Santa stories do is they are teaching you a form of preemptive compliance. In other words, there is a dictator, a king, a monarch, who has decreed a certain mode or manner of behavior. And if you do not preemptively accept that mode of behavior and act accordingly, you will be punished. So you acquiesce. You decide to submit preemptively. And that is a very dangerous way to try to run a civilization. It's a very dangerous way to run a society. And it's a very dangerous way to live. If you only drive 65 when you see a police car, then you really don't understand how a car works. Like, there are a lot of aerodynamic principles and fuel consumption principles and reasons for like braking distance and stuff that certain speeds are better than other speeds when traveling. And we can talk about a lot of things. We can argue over what the ideal number is once you crunch all of that math, but there are reasons that we have lower speed limits, say in a town or around where people or children would be running around, because the faster you're going, the harder it is to stop. That's basic physics, right? And if you think that you are living in a consequence-free world where you can drive 95 through a neighborhood, then you've just rejected all common sense. You shouldn't be surprised if you hit someone or something. You are setting up the circumstances to do that. And again, like I'm saying, I'm not saying the numbers are like divinely ordained, but there's a reason we have set certain numbers for certain places. And that's what ethics is understanding, look, you don't want to hit a kid who's chasing a ball out in front of the road. You don't want to hit a dog that is chasing a frisbee out into the road. So we're going to drive slower so that if you need to stop, you can stop easier. That momentum can be ended faster. That's what ethics actually are.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to get people to understand ethics through things like speed limits, because most people think that they are arbitrary. And you say the quiet part out loud, virtually all ethics are made up. They're decisions that we've made. We may have reasons, we may have arguments for them, but we've made all of them up. They're all arbitrary. That doesn't mean they're bad. Arbitrary is not necessarily bad. Having good justifiable reasons, though, is important. If you are supposed to follow a law because it is a law, you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
There is no way to improve. There is no way to get better. There is no way to find out what is optimal, what is right.
Their reason is just to obey that posted speed limit or not. Once you understand the actual ethics behind it has to deal with stuff happens, life happens, and this is a strip of road in which that likelihood is far greater. Something is going to obstruct your path, and you may need to stop or go around it. And both of those are extremely difficult to do when traveling 90 versus traveling 25. Then, oh yeah, I will drive 25 through here because most of the time my path will be obstructed, but sometimes someone's going to stop. Something is going to run out, stuff will happen.
And that's how you develop an actual ethic. And I think we really do need to have not a full moral panic. Moral panics are bad. Yeah. And I'm not saying that anybody's a bad person for having an elf on the shelf. You may thought it was cute and made up your own story about it. I don't know. That's not the point of this. I'm not going after a specific brand. I think that this is dangerous messaging, whether it's about that elf or whether it's, again, the Santa stories of he has a whole surveillance network that's spying on everybody and we better comply or nothing good will happen. No! Preemptive compliance is always a dangerous thought. We do not follow the law because it is the law. And that is true in all things. Even Paul, who is the biggest stickler for the law, that, remember, people are being killed by the Roman state for being Christian. And Paul gets asked about this. And in his letter to the people in Rome, where this violence is occurring, is all power is invested in God. If God put a leader ahead of you, above you, you just need to follow them. So if they're doing something that you think is bad, you just don't understand the divine purpose. I disagree with Paul on that. Like, if your government's randomly killing people because of their religion or something, your government's bad. But I have democratic ideals in that I believe that power comes from the people, and I do not believe that Caesar is God. So, totally different worldview than what Paul was coming from, right? But Paul's response to them was, look, if they're killing us, we just die, because that's the law.
I'm chuckling because I sit back and I go, maybe this was one of those things that Jesus was talking about that, he can't teach them about in his time period because they just won't understand it.
Which obviously
is true,
Why do you heal people on the Sabbath? To teach you that the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Yeah. Like, I mean, this is the stuff that he's trying to teach people that they're really not getting.
Yeah. Taking time to teach democracy on top of everything else is not going to happen.
You can see it in the early disciples. The first story of how they picked the next apostle, Judas is dead, and we should have another one. We should pick somebody to pick him. They didn't vote. They vetted people, and they came down with several candidates that had the qualifications for the job, and then they cast lots, like God decided. Which one is kind of a better way to do it, especially in something like this, because partisanship can't happen.
Yeah.
So in some ways, especially for like church politics, that might actually be a better way to do it, because you don't get that factionalism because you're not voting. Like, you vetted, you put forward your candidates, and now whoever pulls the right thing, the right stone out of the bag.
I know it probably hurts some people's minds right now to think about that, but imagine if you're trying to fill this position or this candidate, you basically narrow it down to 3 or 5 candidates for that position, and then you put them all in and you pulled.
That have all been vetted, by the way.
All been vetted, yeah. You wouldn't
everyone read, they all had the proper qualifications.
Yeah.
Any one of them could fill the role. So it's not like they're picking a random person off the street that had never even heard of Jesus, right? But you can see in the early church, what I'm getting at is that this proto-democratic idea is kind of in there, but not quite. I really have an issue with this idea of teaching people to obey out of fear of punishment. This is how the imperial church corrupted Christianity. Remember, when Jesus was teaching about hell, he uses a very specific word, and that's Gehenna. Gehenna, or Gehenna in Hebrew, everyone goes there. This is where people don't understand the story, because we've divorced ourselves so much that this Jewish idea, because remember, he was a Jewish rabbi, he was a Jewish teacher, gets interpreted by Greek people who go, Tartarus. No, Gehenna isn't Tartarus. Gehenna is the refuse pile. It's literally the Valley of Hinnom. This is literally where they would go and throw their trash. It's literally what Gehenna was, the Valley of Hinnom. It's a real place. You can go there today. It's a real place you can go, but it was used symbolically as this place where you throw things away. The belief at the time, and in many Jewish circles still to this day, is after you die, this is where you go, and you spend time there. Because there's trauma, there's pain, there are things that you didn't fully work out in your life that you need to work out. It's very much like purgatory in the Catholic Church in a way, but different. And you spend time there throwing away the things that you don't need to bring with you into the next world, into the world to come. And after you've thrown out everything that you need to throw out, you go off into the world to come. And that's where the Jewish stories end. There are to my knowledge, no Jewish stories about what's in the world to come. Is that a reincarnation? Is that a heaven? Is that some spirit world thing? Nobody knows. I've never seen a story about that world to come. There may be some out there that I'm not familiar with, but this is what Jesus is talking about. This is the milieu in which Jesus is talking. And the shocking part of the story is God's going to throw you there. Oh, wait. So God's going to see you as one of those things that needs to be thrown away. That's the shocking part of the story. And we hear it with Jewish ears the way his audience would have heard that. That is shocking. Jesus never says you stay there forever. He says the fires burn forever. He doesn't say that you stay in there. That's all stuff that gets added later. All that hell and damnation stuff all gets added later because, well, we have to deal with a thing that happened in the 2nd century. See, there was a decree that went out that you had to offer incense to the emperor or you couldn't buy or sell. Oh, wait, does this sound familiar? You got a little mark that told you whether you could buy or sell. And a lot of Christians just threw incense on the fire because Paul told them to. Paul says if you have to offer incense, you know the statue means nothing. That's in the Bible, by the way. But, of course, they didn't want to read that because they were pure. They suffered during these times. How do you welcome back those people who didn't suffer like you did and prove their worth like you did? You have to make them suffer. And thus all these other ideas come up. You have to enforce compliance. You see, they're not as good as you. You have to set rules and laws and fear. The boogeyman will get you. And that's what this Santa Claus elf on a shelf thing does, is it creates that fear, and it teaches you to fear any totalitarian state and to preemptively comply to it.
Now that we've deconstructed all this down for you, it's time to take a moment to make those choices and how you want to construct your holiday season. This is why we talk about these various mythic imageries and stuff, and why we talk about the magic of Santa Claus and the rituals that people are going through already in this time period. Which rituals do you want to engage in?
I can tell you how to fix Elf on the Shelf really easily. Watch Pinocchio. Turn the Elf on the Shelf into Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
If that Elf on the Shelf is out there to report on you and tell everybody all the bad, nasty, terrible things that you did, but is there as your conscience to help you wish upon a star and no, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you shouldn't go with the bad kids. Maybe we should be a little bit better about this. Turn your Elf on the Shelf into Jiminy Cricket. It's still providing the exact same social function of helping to teach the kids to do the right thing and all of that without being a literal Satan figure or someone teaching your kids how to comply to a totalitarian regime preemptively. It's a simple change. It's a little fix.
It's a little fix, but it's a huge impact.
And you can actually pull from the lore ways to see this. I just lost his name. The elf from the Rankin Bass of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah.
I just lost his name. The one who wants to be a dentist. Quintus the dentist.
Quintus the dentist.
I think that was his name.
I think so. Sounds right.
Sounds right.
We'll be watching it again soon.
He is the moral heart of this story. He just wants to be me, and he wants to do the right things. And, the abominable is so evil and scary, but he can help him.
Yeah, he's just cranky because he's got a bad tooth.
Yeah.
A big toothache. That's why he's cranky, because we've been those people who had really bad toothaches. Some of us have unfortunately lived through the bad toothache, and we were cranky people. It's hard to be pleasant when you have that much pain in your life.
There's a way to take the character in a very different route and to tell essentially the same story. He's here to help us be better this holiday season, right? But as someone who's there to help us do the right thing, not to report on us for doing the bad thing.
It's the same thing with the Grinch. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. In a way,
That's
the Grinch is a fallen elf. Dark elf of Christmas. He's even drawn in a lot of the similar imagery of an elf.
Yep.
Who's just so angry about it all that he learns. And he realizes that the spirit of the season isn't the stuff, all the physical stuff, that it's actually more of that mystical energy of the season.
Learning to participate in that sacred space.
Secret space and the magic.
And the magic of it. And more on that if you missed yesterday's episode. It's what we talked about yesterday. But yeah, this is a problematic image. And it's not, like I said, I used Elf on the Shelf because it's still fairly popular. But we see, like I said, we see this in the songs. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. He's going to find out who's naughty or nice. I have such an issue with the naughty and nice list. It is the one thing that I have never understood about Santa Claus. I've never understood the idea of, this is a good guy who's spying on everything that you did and judging you for every action. That's a creeper. That's not a good guy. That is not a good guy. Good people don't spy on and judge you based off of what you do in private. They don't judge you on who. It's creepy and I don't like it. But it's also, like I said, it's a dangerous idea, especially as we are living in an era where there is this drive for populist totalitarianism, for Christian nationalism, perpetuating stories that basically say, well, if it's the law, you have to do it. It was the law to be separate but equal, but protesters sat at the counter anyway.
Yeah. You do it because it's right.
They knowingly broke the law.
Yeah.
And that's what protest is in a lot of places. And when law becomes inviolable, that it's the law, so that's just the way it is. We live in a democracy. Laws can be changed. Any law can be changed. And that's why we always should be interrogating, is the law right?
Yeah.
Is it necessary? And making those hard choices and not ceding those to outside authorities that, let's be honest, if Elf on the Shelf is spying on your kids and reporting back, that's because that elf has its own agenda. Because, again, you don't spy on other people and report all of their activities so that they can get punished or rewarded if you don't have another agenda. It's not a good story. So yeah, that's my feelings about Creeper Santa Claus and the Elf on the Shelf, the most popular Satan in the world. Literally by definition. What are your feels about this? I know we have quite a few international listeners who probably have no idea what the Elf on the Shelf is. I don't know how much outside the United States this thing has gotten, but it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a toy elf that you put on a shelf and you tell your kids it's spying on you. Do you have something similar in your country? Or is this something that you've thought about? What do you think about Creeper Santa Claus stories? Because I know that enough American Santa Claus culture has gotten worldwide that people have heard those songs. And I mean, even in the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie, there's a whole plot point about the naughty and nice list. I know that idea has gotten out there. What are your thoughts about this? Are you on the same page that I am, that it's wrong to teach kids to be preemptively compliant and not actually develop morals and ethics on their own? If you disagree, I don't want to know your reasons why, but I am curious. Let me know in the comments. If you're listening to us on Spotify or YouTube, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say that you can leave a comment, they will let us know. So you can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. But then head on over to creationspaths.com, click on chat, and you can leave a comment there, and we will be notified. We will see it. We'll be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, don't forget, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, think about joining a membership. It really does help us out. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am endorsed on both. That money just goes to help us keep the lights on, keep food on the table, and a roof over our heads. Thank you to everybody who does that. And by the way, if you're wondering where might be the best place, Ko-fi is the best place. They take the least of all of the platforms, and you can do one-time donations. If you don't have any money, don't worry about it. If you can help us out by sharing what we're doing with other people, that really is much more of a help than you know, because we really are here to try to get the message out and get people talking. Thank you so much for listening, and who to pray to at the end of this one. Oh, blessed Saint Michael, who often gets a bad rap as the cough among angels, when you are in fact the archangel of compassion, who casts out the devil and all those who wish to do harm. Guide us and guard us in these strange times, and help us to find a way to be strong in our convictions and to find peace and compassion in our lives and in our world. Amen.
Amen.